I was standing in the middle of my great-grandfather's ranch watching HOA board members spray champagne over a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a railway line they'd built right through my cattle pens when Karen number 1 smirked and said, "There's nothing you can do about it." That's the moment they triggered the trap my family buried 100 years ago literally. A clause in their deed they didn't bother reading meant I now owned the entire HOA, the railway, and their homes. Foreclosure was the kindest option. A month earlier, I was patching a fence after a storm when I saw a group of suit-clad people wandering the edge of my land, clipboards, hard hats, the whole shebang. I assumed they were county workers surveying the easement, but the longer they loitered, the more suspicious I got. One tall lady with a sharp bob and a phone permanently attached to her palm was clearly in charge. She pointed at my cattle pens and made a slicing motion across her throat. I knew what that meant. I approached and asked what they were doing. Before I could say much, she shoved a stack of papers at me and introduced herself as president of the Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association. Cedar Ridge, a gaudy, overpriced gated community that had sprung up on the edge of my family's land. McMansions, yoga clubs, kombucha tastings, a total invasion of wine moms and step-forward vibes. And now, apparently, a private railway line. Karen number 1, yes, there were 3 of them, explained they'd secured a permit to build a commuter shuttle to a tech park 20 miles out. It'll increase property values across the board. She beamed. Unfortunately, the line had to go through my cattle pens. You mean my ranch? I said. She smiled tighter. Temporary construction easement. Perfectly legal. You'll be compensated. She said that like I was supposed to be grateful for a Starbucks gift card and a souvenir mug in exchange for generations of family land. I asked if they'd checked the deed or plat maps. She waved it off. Our lawyers handle that. Best if you don't get too involved. These projects can be complicated. Sweetheart, I said. Complicated is what I do. 2 weeks later, I woke up to bulldozers chewing up a quarter-acre of prairie. They mowed through my fence and laid gravel 12 feet into my grazing field. Karen number 2 and 3 were clapping as workers pounded stakes. I just stood on the porch with my coffee watching. That's when I remembered something my granddad said while whittling on this very porch. One day, someone's gonna come knocking, wanting what we got. But don't worry. We already buried the answer. Back then I thought he meant it metaphorically. Turns out he was being quite literal. That night I climbed into the attic and dug through an old chest. Beneath the ledgers and faded photos, I found a file, Mallister Land Trust, 1923 revision. I opened it and there it was. In typewritten ink. If any industrial construction defined as rail, utility, or commercial access occurs on Parcel 4B, without written authorization from the Mallister Trust, ownership of all adjoining properties utilizing said access reverts to the trust after 30 calendar days of unchallenged encroachment. Parcel 4B. Exactly where they laid the railway. No one had asked me for authorization. They had triggered their own forfeiture. The next morning, I went to the county clerk. Janice, who'd known my family for decades, helped me cross-check the HOA's deed references. After an hour, she whistled. Oh my, they didn't file the variance properly. You could roast them with this. That's the plan, I said. Meanwhile, the HOA doubled down. Karen number 1 brought an HOA compliance officer to fine me for unsightly fencing and livestock odor. That's right, I fined a cattle ranch for smelling like cows. They were trying to bury me in bureaucracy. But I was building a paper guillotine. I recorded every infraction, every trespass, every brag about getting rid of the old farmer. Let them think they were winning. 3 days before the 30-day deadline, I mailed them a certified letter. Rosie Martinez, my college buddy and now a rural land rights attorney, drafted it. She read the clause and said, "This is the rancher's version of the nuclear codes." The letter outlined their violation and informed them that their properties and infrastructure were now under review for reversion under Article 5. We included notarized trust documentation, lineage records, and the original clause. The next morning, Karen number 1 was pacing outside my fence, yelling into her phone. She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. She never asked what the land was. She never wondered who laid the foundation she was trespassing on. Then came the HOA board meeting. I wasn't invited, but I showed up anyway. Ron, the treasurer, waved me in. Karen's face drained of color when I walked in, boots propped on the table, sweet tea in hand. She tried to ignore me. The last item on the agenda, external legal challenge involving railway infrastructure. I leaned forward. Misunderstanding is whether you'd prefer to forfeit the railway or the whole subdivision. Silence. Someone dropped a water bottle. Karen nervously laughed, called me a crank. I handed Ron the folder. Inside, the land clause, legal filings, and court-stamped notices. Because of your unauthorized use of trust land, I said, you've triggered reversion. That means the trust now has claim to every parcel connected to the violation. Ron flipped through the documents. Someone asked, can we fight this? Sure, I said, if you've got a few $1 million and 10 years to kill. Or, you could negotiate. Outside, Rosie started filing land purchase offers. The moment word got out, homeowners panicked. We bought back properties they'd bullied people into selling at half price. The trust grew. 3 days later, Karen showed up at my gate with a citation and a sheepish sheriff's deputy in tow. Just runoff violation, she said. I invited them in. When they crossed the fence, I handed the deputy a trespass notice. Karen exploded. You're ruining the community. I played her ribbon-cutting speech. Her voice, laughing, there's nothing you can do about it. I hit pause. Turns out there was. She dragged the deputy back to her SUV. By now, the HOA was imploding. Ron resigned. 2 board members claimed Karen acted alone. Homeowners panicked. Property values dropped. The shuttle project died. Rumors swirled that the trust was reclaiming everything. But I wasn't done. They'd crossed a wildlife corridor my grandfather protected in the 70s. It was a red-tailed hawk-nesting ground-protected species. One anonymous tip later, environmental agents arrived. Karen flailed. Then Rosie found financial records. The HOA had used a beautification tax fund for board retreats, including a Napa wine tour. Illegal use of funds. We filed a whistleblower report. The IRS started poking around. Karen called a private meeting. Ron invited me. She offered a deal, let them keep the railway and they'd pay for damages. Offered to name the station after my grandfather. No, I said. Then the kicker. Their clubhouse, pool, and glass atrium sat squarely on reversion land. I could take it all. You wouldn't, she whispered. You started this. I'm finishing it. Rosie called that night. The court approved an expedited hearing. The judge reviewed everything. The next morning, he ruled. The HOA knowingly violated trust-protected property, misused funds, and failed to disclose encroachment liability. The charter is dissolved. No more fines. No more patrols. Karen was just another homeowner now. A week later, we installed a heavy-duty gate at the road into Cedar Ridge. Sign, private road. Malister Trust. Entry by permit only. Karen called, asking for a compromise. I offered $500 annual access permits. She accused me of extortion. That's less than what you fine me for haystacking, I said. With the HOA gone, homeowners had to deal with me directly. One guy offered a pie. I declined the pie, accepted his offer to mow my fields. Karen tried again, this time with a lawyer. Claimed the gate violated emergency access laws. Rosie responded with fire lane documentation and a fresh weather forecast. Then we hit gold. Rosie discovered a clause tied to historical zoning protections. The clubhouse had hosted paid event-shot yoga, weddings, wine tastings. All commercial. All illegal. We filed a new petition. I was granted custodianship of the clubhouse. On transfer day, Karen stood outside blocking the door. The deputy said, "Ma'am, you're trespassing." She wobbled. After the keys were handed over, I hosted an open house. Free coffee, live music, and a plaque that read, Karen's Folly. But I wasn't done. That railway? I partnered with a farm co-op. We converted it into a produce line. Freight, not tech bros. Karen's car got booted for unpaid road fees the same day. She came to my porch. Quieter now. Asked what it would take for peace. I handed her a folder, Restorative Options. A fund for victims of HOA abuse. The next day, she was gone. For sale sign in the yard. No goodbye. Just an envelope in the drop box with a photo of her at the ribbon cutting. On the back, I never thought you'd win. But I wasn't done winning. Rosie called. She'd uncovered one last thing. Karen had created a shell company in her cousin's name. Kickbacks from contractors. Bribes for deals. We sent the evidence to the state AG. Within a week, subpoenas were issued. Karen, who had vanished, became the center of a corruption investigation. News trucks swarmed. Property values nosedived. Cedar Ridge became a national joke. The trust held steady. We offered fair buyouts to residents who wanted out. Many took the offer. The land was reclaimed, turned into gardens, conservation space, and art shows in the old clubhouse. The kids carved a jack-o'-lantern that looked suspiciously like Karen. I didn't ask who did it, but I laughed. One winter day, I visited my grandfather's grave. Told him the whole story. The clause, the court, the co-op. I swear I could hear his old laugh in the wind. A few months later, I bought Karen's house from the auction. No big announcement. Just keys in hand. We turned it into a stable. The neighbors called it Redemption Ranch. I didn't argue. One of the manure carts is named Karen Express. Rosie did one interview. I did none. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew. The land breathes again. The fences are low. The history runs deep. And the tracks they laid to cut us in half? We turned them into a bridge.